Welcome everyone to our talk this afternoon. We have with us I-Sheng Yang, Data Science Manager at Aviva. Welcome. And I-Sheng is also a theoretical physicist, and he's mostly involved in data scientists in the marketing and insurance industry. The topic of the talk is P2 equals to Tfidf. Of mystery surrounding this topic, but we're going to learn more about this P2 equals to Tfidf, and we hope to really get more from you, I-Sheng. So you have our attention for the next 30 minutes. Go ahead.
All right, thank you very much for the introduction. So I'm a theoretical physicist, used to be a theoretical physicist and switched into industry for a while. And let me share my screen so I can start explaining this kind of a bit mysterious topic. And by the way, it's not P2, it's actually PII. Sorry about that. It's not so clear. Let me start by sharing our screen. Please let me know if there's any technology problem. I think we tested this. You should be seeing my full screen, which has the presentation on it. Sir, what's happening? Okay, is that all? Okay, so I assume everyone is seeing the slide. So the title is PII equals to Tfidf, and most of the talk will be about just explaining what those two things mean. And then the relation will be obvious. It is not going to be directly about my current work. It's mostly related to the previous work I've done in Drop, which is an online marketing shopping app company. So let's dive into it. So I'll start by explaining what PII means. It stands for Personally Identifiable Information. If you look it up on Wikipedia, right, you'll see some explanation like this. It's any information that can be used to distinguish or trace someone, right, individual's identity. For example, it could be the name, the social security number, date of birth, place of birth, maiden name, and so on and so forth. Right? So there can be many those things that can allow us to distinguish or trace someone. And in particular, I'll be talking about in the context of transaction data. This is a very typical kind of transaction data. Tells us someone goes shop at Costco and spend this amount. Well, this amount is not realistic. In Costco, you don't spend just $20. But anyways, it's just something I type up. You can see many organizations, many financial organizations own a huge amount of this kind of data, right? And you can imagine data has value, right? You can try to mine and utilize the value hidden inside the data. But nowadays, PII is a hot topic because within those data, there could be many information that is private and sensitive. In order to utilize your data in a responsible and ethical way, we need to first remove that piece. At the same time, we cannot just destroy all the data together because we want to keep some valuable information. So the ability to remove PII with surgical precision is going to be very useful nowadays for big organizations to leverage their data. And in this example, you might think it's simple, right? Costco is the thing I want to keep, and that whatever can be your membership number, just kill it. It turns out that if we look at the entire bank statement, right, any transaction data as a whole, this is complicated than we thought, because nowadays transactions are complicated. Imagine you go on Amazon to buy something. Sometimes you don't really buy from Amazon, right? You're buying from a seller, and Amazon is really just the interface. It's a middleman in that transaction. And there are actually many other middlemen in this process. For example, right, after you want to pay, you take your credit card, you put in your credit card information. There are companies specialized in making that transaction secure. So the transaction goes through them. And then the request is sent to your credit card. Well, Visa or Master or some credit card company need to deal with that. And your credit card is issued by some bank probably, or by some other financial entities. So they are also involved. So one simple transaction can have up to 5 or more middleman facilities involved in that, and all of them might dump some information into your transaction description. So it could be a huge mess. There could be information from any single entity that you don't even know about. So it's not an easy task to remove PII from there. And also, they are throwing this information into there without really caring too much, because these end up in your transaction record, in your bank statement, which is assumed to be private already. So they are not going to go out of their way to prevent throwing PII there. Some of them will. They will mask something, but they are not going out of their way. So there could be personal information hiding in this kind of gigantic monster that many organizations just throw information into. So being able to remove them with surgical precision while keeping the information you want is a very important capability. And well, this is 2021 already, right? So actually last year, there are many breakthroughs in natural language process. And many people might know about GPT-3 can be leveraged as a very useful tool to deal with this already. It's a pre-trained deep learning model on natural language data. So it understands language almost as human does. So if you're leveraging a solution of that sort, you're basically using that machine to help you recognize what word, what tokens is a name, or maybe it's a social security number, and so on and so forth. And then you pick them out one by one, right? Name, go away. Social security number, go away, and so on. You can use that natural language understanding to flag those as suspicious, look like PII. So there's kind of already a solution. And the reason I'm still here talking about it is because I'm a theoretical physicist. When I look at this, my intuition tells me, hey, there is something more we can do. Because the first line here, right, any information can be used to distinguish a trace identity. This is the fundamental, this is the root of the problem, right? This is the definition of the problem. And the second line here are just examples. There are miscellaneous examples. It's not even exhaustive, right? It cannot be exhausted by examples. And then we're using a huge, very involved solution just to pick out those examples, which is not directly addressing the root of the problem, which suggests that sometimes there can be a simpler solution that directly addresses this root of the problem, which will be what I want to talk about today. Okay. Of course, I want to stress sometimes. I don't want to oversell my solution, right? It works under some condition. Let's first talk about what those conditions are. The most important condition is that your data need to be ownership tagged. It cannot be just a bunch of transactions with descriptions. It also need to tell me whom does that transaction belong to. Right? In this case, I will be able to say that the first two transactions belong to the same person, the same user A, or the next one belong to a different person. This tag is necessary for my method to work. Right? That is just a condition. In the financial sector, it's probably not a very strong constraint because most of the time, when you get your hand on a bunch of transaction data, you probably know who was the person that performed the transaction. And in fact, that is the person we want to protect, right? It is the PII of that person that we want to be protected. We want to be secure. So that's the first condition. It's required, it's definitely required, but it's not hard to satisfy. The second condition is not required, but it's here to show you that the method is going to have some advantage over the GPT or just natural language method in general. Because if you use a natural language-based method, well, the transaction description is not really natural language, right? People just dump information into there. So it might require a lot of modification, tuning, and so on to adapt your natural language method into this context. But the method I will talk about is much simpler. It even applies to just not natural language, so it's going to work directly. So that is the situation where this method, although simpler, is not weaker. It's not strictly weaker. It may have some edge against the more involved natural language method. And I want to stress why ownership matters a lot. So imagine if I just write down a random 9-digit number like this one, it is probably the social security number for someone in the world. I don't know who that person is, right? However, as long as that appear in my data, in my transaction record, or my bank account statement, if that's not my social security number, it doesn't matter, right? It's not my PII, and the bank is not responsible for protecting that. Because I can write that 9-digit number randomly in the memo section of my check. I deposit that, it will show up. Some random number, who cares? Right. Second example, right? This Michael 1988. looks like an online ID for someone whose not only first name is Michael, but probably was born in 1988. So it contains a lot of information about that Michael. As long as it's not my ID, also doesn't matter, right? The organization who has the data is going to protect me, not some random person that is not owner of the account. Right? And in fact, we probably want to keep that Michael 1988 if it's not my ID, because if something like that appear in my transaction record, it might be the seller, right? It might be the person I buy things from. And buy things from is a very important information, like Costco and Shoppers and whatever, right? We want to keep those brand information exactly because that is the entity we buy things from, and there may be good reason to want to keep that. Right? So if the natural language process just go there and recognize that this is an ID and kill it, that may not be exactly aligned with our actual goal. Right? That's why if we can leverage ownership, we put this into at top of our concern, right? It's my data. It should anything about me should be removed. Not about me is fine. We know how the method should work. And this is where the TF-IDF come in, right? This is a very like first lesson for any natural language process data science course. Right? You go look at the data. Right now, all these belong to the same person. Other belongs to a different person. And you look at this. Right? This is an example where, okay, this looks suspicious. This could be your membership ID, and we want to remove it. Well, when you see that the first time, you're not sure, because it could also be like an invoice number. But what can tell apart an invoice number to a membership ID is that if this number repeats for the same person, oh, okay, then that's not invoice number, because every transaction should have a different invoice number, right? So anything repeat for the same person should raise a flag. It's more dangerous. It's more likely to be about that person. However, it should be tempered with another number, because this not only repeats for the person, it also follows Costco. So it could be something about Costco. So the next thing you check, oh, by the way, so this is the frequency you see, right? How frequent does it appear for the same person? It matters. And in a natural language context, it's usually called the text frequency. It's how often this word appear within the same text. That's why it's called TF. The second thing we check is, okay, how often does something repeat for different people, right? Whether this number appears multiple times on multiple people. In this case, you can see that, right? This maybe person A will have multiple that number because that person goes to the same target supercenter. But that token clearly is not about person A, because it appears for person B too, because they go to the same target supercenter. It's most likely their postal code. Right? And this is usually called DF, is that how many different documents do you see the same token? In our case, it's how many different users do you see the same token? And the more different user you see, the less likely that is about one particular person. And it's nothing more than just combining them, right? Whether if this data is the only thing I have, whether a piece of information is about that person's sensitive PII, well, the more times that repeats for the same person, the more likely it's going to be true. So we consider that a factor. But the more times appear for across different person, the less likely that is the case. So we divide by this. So usually it's TF-IDF, it means text frequency inverse document frequency. It's a good threshold to test whether this token is really the PII of the owner of the data. And that's a very quick, very short introduction, explanation of the title. If you have big data set, it is ownership tagged. Well, kind of the definition of PII is really given by a function, as usual, increasing with TF, increasing with how many the token repeats for the same person. And then it's a decreasing function. It's less likely if the same token appear for many other different people. And this is such a simple method. It comes from the definition of identifiability. It doesn't care about whether your data is in natural language form or not. Right? In fact, if I were a hacker, I got my hand on such a piece of data, this is probably the first scan I'll run through. I use this TF-IDF to identify what other informations are associated with individuals that I can exploit. Right, so this is a good advantage that doesn't care about natural language and apply to any data set as long as it has the ownership tagged property. And I'm not trying to sell it as like this is better than GPT-3 and so on, right? A very important advantage in practice is that doesn't matter what method you use to identify and deal with PII, you always need to check, and that is a lot of human labor, right? You need to check by human labeling all those data to see whether you're...
This is just summarizing what I've talked about in the earlier part. That is, if we are looking at a big data with ownership tag, then we can pretty much leverage the Tfidf or any function that is increasing with TF, increasing with how many, a single token. So let's not go to full screen because I want to take questions in this slide. Right. Any function that is an increasing function of how frequent the token repeat for the person, and a decreasing function of how often the token repeat for other people or appear in many other people. Take that as even a definition of PII. So if that number is bigger, it means that it's more likely to be PII. If it's smaller, it's less likely. And this purely coming from a fundamental definition of identifiability. So it doesn't care about whether your data is in natural language or not. And in practice, combine those with GPT-3 or any natural language method, having two different methods can help us to focus on the cases where they disagree and to redirect our manual effort, because it always requires some manual effort to check whether anything built with PII is working properly. So I think I still have time to take some questions before I go down to the second part. And this is a great place to pause if we have questions. So, I'm sorry about the technical glitch.
And audience aggregate the questions at the end, so you can go ahead with your presentation.
All right, great. Then let's move on to the second part. So let's full screen mode it. So if we keep this kind of TF-IDF method in mind, let's look at one particularly interesting problem I run into when I implement it. Okay? And this is going to be a bit technical, but I'll try to make sure everyone is with me. So please stop me or ask questions. There's going to be only 4 slides, so don't worry too much. So I'll give you one practical example. This is user which has get a bill from a cell phone company, and you can see the cell phone number is there. Before we can apply TF-IDF, right, before we can compute the frequency of any single token, we need to parse the string to define what is a token, right? In this case, you can say, I'm going to ignore the dash. So I put all the numbers together. That gigantic cell phone number is one token. You can also choose to say, this is your parser, right? This is your parsing character. So it's split into 3 individual tokens. And this basically didn't parse, it parses more. So I'm going to call this case underparsed, and that is overparsed. In this example, clearly we want to underparse because when that is one token, it is a cell phone number. It will repeat for this person every single month when he gets a bill, but likely not for anyone else. So the method will work very well by TF-IDF. On the other hand, if we overparse, we cut that into 3 different numbers. Well, a 3-digit number will appear for every 1,000 person once, right, on average. So the DF, right, it may appear for a lot of different people. So your filter might fail, right, in this principle. And in general, if we cut down our like text into smaller and smaller building blocks, they repeat all the time, right? There are just 26 characters and 10 digits. They always reappear. So overparsing in this case, in general, is going to make your TF-IDF method fail. Right, so it looks like in this particular case, you want to underparse it to ensure that your method will work. However, let's look at the second case. The transaction may appear in this way, in which this is actually kind of your account number. So there's a membership number maybe with Walgreens. So that is PII. If you underparse it, means that you just ignore that dash and put them all together. Guess what happened? Wall green plus a unique number, this entire thing is still unique, will only appear for you and not for other people. So this entire string together will be killed. It's kind of a failure, right? Because if I want to know this transaction is with wall green, and you just kill it. So you erase the brand information. If you overparse it, it's actually fine here because you then separate them into two separate tokens. This one will get killed, this one you keep, perfect. So you can see now we are in a bit of a pickle, right? There's a dilemma that both cases exist in your transaction record. If you choose to underparse, in the second case, great, you remove PII, but in the first case, you lose the important information. If you choose to overparse, I'm sorry, in this case, yeah, you keep the brand information, but in the second case, you're going to leak PII, which we don't want. And whenever we're in this situation, usually people just say, okay, we need to compromise a little bit because maybe PII is more important. We cannot tolerate this. We'll go with that as the standard way, and then try to add some customized rules to save this. And if that were the case, I won't be here talking about it. I'm a theoretical physicist. I like general and simple solutions. And there is one here. The general solution starts in multiple steps. Right? The first step, we overparse, make sure they're all separated. So these are two tokens. And you apply your TF-IDF standard. It's going to recognize this is your membership number and replace that by generic like 5 hashtag. This is a general replacer for any PI. And that's only the first step because after this, while your phone number apparently is still there, that's not good, but that's fine. Let's do the second step. In the second step, we take these, and for every 2 consecutive tokens, we combine them and treat them as one token. So these 2 are combined to be this. These 3, the first 2 are combined to be that, and the second 2 are combined to be this. And then we again apply the TF-IDF. In this case, because the membership was already replaced by this generic 5 hashtags, this wall green 5 hashtag is going to appear for many different people because they all have their membership already removed. This will survive because DF will be high, disappear for everyone. This will be there, survive. On the other hand, these numbers, once they combine with a 7-digit number, it should be unique enough that your TF-IDF will pick it up as a private number, repeat for this person, but not many times for other people, and will kill it. Let's say 6 digits is even too many, right? It's not unique enough, but 7 is. At least it will recognize the second piece, this combination as PII, and then it's going to flag the 2 tokens are component of it and say both of them are PII, and they will both be replaced by the standard 5 hashtags. And you're done. Now you see, by leveraging the 2-step process, you can have your cake and eat it. The first overparse and remove, you're going to kill this individual PII. But then, after that, by combining things and run through the standard again, you are going to also catch those tricky PII, which will become PII when things are combined. You can see this also solves a very common a lot of first names that are very common. They appear for many, many different people. So that first name alone won't be flagged as PII, which is fine because there are so many David and Michael out there. Right? I don't get to identify individual person. But if you have a full name combination, that is dangerous. So using the 2-step process, it is very likely that a common first name or common last name individually will not get killed. That is fine. But when they are combined together, they become a pretty rare like full name combination. Then this method will have the ability to pick those up and remove them as PI. So the simple TF-IDF method combined with multiple steps doesn't have to start by 2 steps. Right? You can do individual tokens, 2 tokens in a row to combine, and then followed by 3 tokens in a row to combine. You can control how far do you want to go. A multi-step TF-IDF filter is going to properly remove PII, not only in individual tokens, but also PII that's hiding in a combination of tokens. and be a very good PII cleanser. And that's all. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, I-Sheng Yang. We really enjoyed your talk on the topic PII. At the moment, we don't have any questions on the chat, so we're hoping that the participants can ask questions and relate to you. So just to remind everyone, if you want to ask questions, you can put it in the chat, and we can relate to I-Sheng. I-Sheng, just have a question. This have you had any chance to apply it anywhere at all? Maybe any prototype or model?
Yes, so actually the full PII cleanser that is based on this theory and a lot of customization, manual customization with real data, is already being productionized in Drop, and we have a preliminary patent for it, and it's already working for us because we need to do this before we can share any data with our financial partners. Oh. So they can use, for example, if they know cost of market share in real time.
Okay, sorry. I think there was a delay in the relay of the video. So, okay. So I have a question here. It says from Ray McTaggart, if it's not strong, say the same person owns more debit cards, do you think this may be a lower threshold? Is it possible?
A very good question, right? So basically the threshold you're going to choose in this method, and in fact, you may not want to just use TF-IDF. You may want to customize what kind of increasing function you design for as a function of TF, and what kind of decreasing function you design for the DF, and play with your threshold and play with your functional forms to achieve the best result. And that is something you need to tune with your data. So in your case, if the person really owns so many debit cards that are comparable to all the other people out there, there will be a problem. As long as it's just like order 10 or something, it's still fine, right? That person is being treated as 10 different people, yes. But it should still be okay.
Okay.
Welcome.
In case, do you mind if we share your emails in case anyone wants to reach you? Is that okay?
Okay, yeah, no problem.
I'll share that.
Do I need to type it on the
maybe they have further questions about. I'll share it in the chat. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, there you have it. I don't think we have any more questions for now. Okay.
Last chance for anybody that has any questions. I-Sheng, are those places you've visited in the background?
More or less, yeah. We do send postcards to ourselves, yes.
You've traveled many places.
Wow. Occupational hazard. As a physics postdoc, I'm sorry, you just have to keep moving.
Good answer, good answer. Well, actually, thank you so much, and thank you, Franklin, for helping MC and introduce. And this has been very helpful. I think we'll continue to share this talk to the others in the group who have attended the past finance events. So it'll be nice to get your feedback, and I appreciate you making yourself available as well for questions and follow-up contact afterwards. It's very generous of you.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you for the next session. I think we're going to take a short little break here, and we'll continue on at 1 p.m.
Bye.